Through the use of my research into several music magazines of different genres, I was able to recognise the common conventions that appear, paying specific attention to those arising in the R&B genre, which all aided in the planning of my own media product. I looked at the main most attractive elements of popular R&B music magazines in the industry right now, such as Vibe, XXL, The Source, etc., in order to ensure that I included similar features which would entice my target audience as much as possible. Good afternoon, people. It's just gone 4 p.m. and I'm Shannon McCarthy with your media takeover from 4 till 6. In this part of the show, we dedicate 2 whole hours to media because, let's face it, it's the best subject in the world. And earlier today, actually, I myself uploaded onto our Twitter and Facebook sites images of the media product that I created back in my A-level years, which came in the form of a new music magazine. And since this morning, I've been flanked, as expected, by thousands of you, our most loyal media fans, and I asked for your feedback and any comments or queries about my media product, which I felt very comfortable sharing with you. Now the time has come for me to randomly select the first comment that I'm going to shout out, and this one comes from Amy London 96 on Twitter, who says, "Shannon, I love the show, I listen every morning, but what I want to know is whether you try to make your magazine conform to or go against the codes and conventions of existing media products, and how you did this, as I hope to design my own magazines in the near future." Well, Amy, that's a very good question indeed, but does require some detail in my response. So what I'll do is I'll break it down to all the conventions, and first of all, and then share with you how I followed them. So, first of all, when creating a new music magazine, of course I needed an appropriate masthead or title for the magazine, which required me to take many important factors into account, such as font style, colour, size, meaning and position. Now, I started with a range of initial ideas for the name of my magazine, which I had decided on due to the sound or rhythm of R&B music and other factors as well, and I then transferred these into a tally chart in order to gain the opinions of 30 to 40 of my peers. After collecting this data, I created a bar graph so that I could visually see the results, and from doing so it was quite evident that the main contender was Onyx. I got the initial idea for this from my findings of my target audience research, obtaining that a large section of those who listened to my genre of music were of black or African descent, so I decided to look up synonyms for the word black. This had been done by lifestyle magazines such as Ebony and Jet, which gave me the idea. An onyx is a black rock characterised with several parallel black and white layers, which seemed quite appropriate for my media product and also gave me the incentive to widen the genre of my magazine to include subgenres such as hip-hop, soul and dance, all under the R&B umbrella. Now, to gain a better image of the type of masthead I was aiming to represent, my R&B genre, I had to analyse and examine several fonts in and around the genre to determine what I did and didn't like in a logo. So first of all, I looked at the magazine Vibe and their masthead logo. I then took a look at XXL and The Source. It then became apparent to me from this research that one of the main conventions of music magazine titles was the use of block colour such as red, white or black, and the style of font that I ended up choosing was large and in block capital letters, which I had previously noticed a pattern of in those magazine examples, finding that nearly every magazine trying to reach the urban segment of the population have large bold titles and capital letters to connote volume and power, so I implemented this as well as the sans serif text and black colour to follow the codes and conventions of an R&B magazine. What I also did actually, so that I was following codes and conventions, was keep a regular colour scheme present throughout my front cover, and I also made sure that there was a consistent and noticeable link between the masthead and the cover lines due to their colours and the sans serif style, and the placement of my masthead was treated with equal importance. So being centred at the top of the cover enabled it to be spotted easily and it transfers immediate attention straight to it, allowing a strap line to fit in the length above it as well, which was also a conventional element to the makeup of many magazine front covers. And many magazines in my genre have this, contrasting to maybe Q, NME and We Love Pop, whose logos appear in the top left hand corner with every issue, which is obviously completely different to mine. And now for my second shout out of the day. It's I am Luco7 on Twitter, who asks, Shannon, how did you make the pricing and number of pages in your magazine in keeping with those already on the market? Well, that's another good question, and having researched the prices of existing media products beforehand, I noticed that they range depending on whether the magazine is published weekly or monthly or quarterly. And magazines that come out monthly, bi-monthly or quarterly, like Vibe, Q and The Source, round up to about £4, whereas I noticed that weekly magazines like NME and Hip Hop average at about £2.50 to £3. So from this research, I've made my magazine cover price £3.95 so that it conforms to the conventions of magazine prices in the industry today, and so that my potential buyers, don't feel like they're being ripped off by my magazine. I learnt from other examples that as I'm producing a monthly magazine, I'd have to include 100 or more pages as well in the product, as it's clear from, these examples that this is an appropriate amount for the content that I'm promoting. Amy Robinson has text in here actually, and she says, Shannon, how did you make the mode and tone of address of your media product to follow the conventions of existing media products? And another important convention obviously was the mode of address and the language used, and I had to make sure that I tailored it to my youthful target audience of 15 to 25 year olds. And bearing this age range in mind, I made the language used in my products simplistic and to the point. I tried to avoid cover lines that were too long and descriptive, and I swapped them for large, lavish, short and sweet headings and subheadings that would instantly engage the creative minds of my target audience. From my research, I noticed that on mainstream R&B magazines, a large amount of linguistic and persuasive devices are used to sort of lure the potential reader into becoming a buying customer through the power of free rhetorical questions, superlatives, comparatives, imperative language, a lot actually, and sometimes even alliteration. All of which attracts the reader and keeps them interested and actively engaged with the product. So in my own style of writing and mode of address, I try to address my readers directly, as if speaking to them in an informative yet informal conversation. I kept the complexity of the language used quite minimalistic, but maintained an effective and powerful tone through short phrases on my front cover, like exclusive and brand new dilemma, riding solo, as well as the pull quotes from interviews to draw the reader in. My strapline hyperbolically emphasises that a specific feature is exclusive to my product, which, as well as being in a different colour, tells the reader that they're part of an elite group of readers to whom the following information will be revealed, as it's available nowhere else. And the rhetorical question presumes that the reader already knows who the mentioned R&B artists are, which engages them in the curiosity of whether those two will be collaborating, and the fact that it's a fact that is questioned by the product itself intrigues the reader as they wonder if it's true or not, or if it's simply a rumour. Carl from Kent has asked, you've talked about the house style, Shannon, but how did you actually make this conform to codes and conventions? Well, the house style was usually maintained through the use of colour, font style and size, layout, images and design elements. And I found lots of examples of how a house style can be established. But on my own magazine, the colour red is extremely dominant across all pages, as it's used to highlight the key elements and main features, as well as black or white being mainly used for subheadings and smaller descriptive body text. In addition to this, I made sure that the identity of my magazine, Onyx, was portrayed on every page in different sort of ways. So from the front cover, I have copied the font of the masthead through to my contents with just, the same fonts used. And I got this idea from, Vibe magazine, The Source. They all use similar fonts throughout the product on various pages. I tried to maintain the website on every double page spread, and in the top right hand corner of my contents page I have Onyx Monthly, so that I wanted to get across the idea that if you ripped out a page of my magazine you'd know where it's from instantly. and Onyx Monthly at the top there was the same font as the masthead in a colour from my original colour scheme. So altogether, the language and the fonts and the colours I've used do maintain a house style throughout my product. I'm going to do my last shout out now and answer my very last question of the night. This one's going to be from Deborah McCluckey on Facebook, who asked about the layout of my magazine. And after conducting my research into different types of layouts that are used for the front page, contents page and double page spread in other magazines, I was actually successfully able to use these examples in helping me decide on the layout of my own. And I found that on the front page of the majority, there's near enough equal amount of cover lines on each side, so that it doesn't, make the magazine look sort of top heavy or too overcrowded in one particular area. And that also the image takes up quite a majority of the page, with a masthead placed at the top of the page and a barcode at one side or at the bottom. In magazines promoting more of an indie rock sort of genre of music like Q and NME, there's constantly a 3-column layout, some columns stretching wider than others, but they always seem to follow that. And in these sort of genre of magazines, there's always many images taking up the contents page. There's normally about 3 to 6, maybe more in some issues. But then this contrasts completely to like the Source and XXL specifically, I think of, and Hip Hop as well. There's normally 2 contents pages, and they normally have like one big photograph consuming the whole page, and then just like a list of sort of contents. So they're extremely different, the genres of music, the hip hop versus the pop and sort of indie genre as well. So it was very different. But then obviously you've got hip hop actually, which does have a 3-column layout. It does follow the indie rock genre conventions, but it's promoting the hip hop, genre of music. So it was very weird, and it was hard, with me doing R&B, it was hard for me to decide on the sort of layout I was going to go for. But eventually I decided to follow the 3-column layout. But I didn't just have one picture, like the Source and all of those on my contents page. I did use a few pictures to sort of make my contents page look not too busy, but to draw draw my reader's eye to the cover story image, which was bigger and it stood out a lot more. And so that there was also other things for them to look at, because I didn't want it to just be bland. I thought that if I had one picture, it just wouldn't be enough to really grab their attention. So yeah, with regards to the content promoted by my cover lines and the features on my contents page, I'd say that the content I promoted, the content promoted on existing media products always carries the duty and responsibility of appealing to its target audience, sort of by advertising gadgets or exclusive downloads which would interest and engage them with the magazine. So I definitely try to do this as well. I had an iPhone and a sort of win caption somewhere, so I really did try and grab their attention just like they do in existing products.